Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Today on Collection Lessons, I want to talk about creating fate. It's part of my Collection Lesson series. Anything I'm saying on this channel is anything advice, and let's get going. So, when I talk about creating fate, I'm talking about um, letting fate kind of take over certain situations. So it kind of plays with your mind on what is fate. Is fate something that's predetermined, or is it not? And I know someone like me that's very detailed and structured. There's not much happens in throughout my day that is completely random. So everything is structured. We know like our schedule from Sunday to Sunday the next week, and it pretty much follows suit. But how do you create randomness if something's going to happen, right? How do you create randomness if fate's going to happen? So let's just go into some examples to show what I'm trying to establish here. So it kind of gives some spontaneity, I think it's called, if you think of it like that. Basically, if you structure your life in an if-then-else statement, if this, then that's what they call it. So it's an if-else statement is how that works. So, if I don't like to make some decisions, right? They could be important decisions, they could be like what's for supper decisions, they could be whatever. Instead of deciding on what's going to happen, you can decide on what will cause the decision to happen. If you think of it like that. So let's say, a quick example, let's say is an easy one. You could pick, something like, I don't know, barbecue chicken for supper, right? Barbecue chicken is for supper. You could, make that decision. However, how do you randomize a decision in a sense? It's like, well, I could have barbecue chicken, or I could have, I don't know, like poutine up in here in Canada. Poutine. So those are decisions. It's like you choose one for one day and one for the other day. Instead of making those decisions, what I'm talking about with creating fate, because fate is like, well, you're gonna have barbecue chicken anyway. It is taking this idea and putting an if statement in front of it. So a really good way, and this is kind of what they talk about with atomic habits, with habit stacking, is basically you let the decision land on fate, because this is 100% you. You having chicken tonight is 100% your decision. If you put an if statement in between and an else, let's say you're driving down the street and you're like, oh, I don't know, what should I have, chicken or poutine tonight? And it's like, well, you just actually don't have to decide and just say, when I make a right turn, there's going to be a light. If the light is green, then you have your chicken. Else, if it's yellow or, other one is most likely red, then you have your poutine. It's like you just took this initial decision of you and the decision into like a 1, 2, and a third step in a sense. And it's like, well, why would you do this? Why are you creating scenarios for something so simple? And it's like, maybe it's not something so simple. And maybe it's like, well, I could hang out with friend A on Friday or friend B. It's like, well, what's best? I don't want the other one to feel left out. I want to play this, I want to do that, or do whatever you do with a friend. It's like, well, how do you decide that? And, if you just routinely have the same person every Friday, if you routinely go the same direction on the road every, Monday, and you want to switch it up to create some excitement in your life, let's say, or put you in different situations where you can be around different people, and then you're not so closed in a box in your life type of thing, then you would create fate like this. And this is kind of what I do with some decisions, especially ones that don't matter. It's not like I'm like, oh, what investment should I buy? If the light is green, I'm going to buy this. And it's not quite the same. This is more so just to get in a different situation or scenario and not make those little decisions that could last for an hour to figure out if you're going to eat the chicken or the poutine tonight. But the idea is you're creating fate. If you think of it like that, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen anyways. It's like, it's not my decision. It kind of lets go of all that liability, right? It's kind of like in a sense. So like in a different sense with me, it's, you know, I put an if statement. If my rent is greater than 1,800, we'll say, then I move. Then I'm out. That's really the only trigger that's gonna kick me out of this place, right? Obviously, if the landlord kicks me out, he kicked me out. But like, this is my parameters. If it's more than 1,800, then I'm out. And if it's less than 1,800, I'll stay here until I can buy a house in cash, right? And so it's like you apply this to different situations. You set your this is another thing that I kind of call it is a stop loss. And stop loss is like in a trading term, it's like when your idea is wrong, then you get out. Is generally what a stop loss is. It helps prevent further downfall. Once you set these, basically these fate determinator things, you don't generally want to move them. When they trigger, you do something, right? If you keep moving it, it's like, well, rent is like, oh, it's 1,700, and next year I know it's gonna be 1,800, but I don't want to move next year, so I'm gonna create this to 1,900. It's like, well, no, you gotta stick true to what you just said you're doing in the first place. You know, if you set these for anything. It's like if the vehicle's, in a fixing sense, let's say my vehicle is 5K, it's like if the fix that I gotta get done is like greater than 3K, it's like then I just sell the car or write it off or whatever and buy a new one, right? Else I just fix it because it's probably cheaper to just fix under 3K and fix it rather than not, and then you don't have to worry about any new vehicle and its potential problems or whatever. But this is the idea where I talk about creating fate. It's like I have a stop loss essentially for everything. It's like, let's say, I don't know, at my job, if my job gets too stressful, if the stress level is over 90, I'm going to be looking for a new job. If my hours, if I work 28 hours a week and I'm happy with that, and then, I can't pay my bills, obviously, then I'm going to have to either work more or get better pay. And it's just an interesting idea. If you think of it like that, like creating fate, it's like chances are you're going to have to find a new house to begin with, or you're going to have to find a new job, or you're going to have to rent somewhere, or you're going to have barbecue chicken anyway. It's like, yeah, but what is the triggers? What is the stop loss? And, have a stop loss on everything, essentially. It's like if you're trying to negotiate with your kid about eating some leftovers or macaroni or whatever, and they cry about it for an hour, what's the stop loss? It's like, well, it's getting close to 7 p.m. and they need to get to bed. That's my stop loss. My stop loss is 7 p.m. If it's 7 p.m., the kid, gets something, or, maybe doesn't eat or whatever. Not like I'm harsh on that, but like, you need a stop loss. You need to create some fate, in a sense, right? It's kind of like you need to create some opportunities where things can be different and change, and you're prepared for it and you're okay with it. Unexpected things happen, but it's like, I don't know when the next, emergency for my BMW is going to be, but I already have a system in place. If it dies, I have money set aside for the emergency, and I would just buy a different one, or I'd fix it, stuff like that. And then it's like, life kind of gets a little boring when you have all these if statements in your head. So then you create fun ones like the barbecue chicken, and if the light's green, then we're getting that. But I just wanted to share that interesting kind of mindset on it, and just kind of what I do to kind of help create some sort of randomness throughout the week. So it's not so structured, and I don't know if many people are on here are detail focused and oriented and that type of thing, but it does help, especially me when I'm like not making these decisions, and when I have stop losses in place for certain things, it really helps alleviate the amount of stress when it's like, I already made this decision 6 months ago. If the rent goes up to 1,800, I'm out, right? So, and it's about being okay with that too. And some people, they get stuck on their house and that type of thing. But anyway, just wanted to share this interesting lesson that I kind of created along the way, called creating fate, having a stop loss in a sense, and structuring some sort of structure. An if else statement is basically like a computer language term. If you click the button, it does this, and if it's used in video games a lot. If the car goes off the road, then you apply different traction, stuff like that. It just makes things super easy, And I mean, if we could stick a rock into a CPU and make it think logically like this, I'm sure that as a human, we can have the same type of logic applied to us and at any level of intelligence, and just make it simpler in life. So, wanted to share that. Hope you guys are doing well. Thanks, and talk soon.